We are
Nastasia Filippo,
Lorenzo Alberti,
Francesco Ricci,
Martin Balaban, and this is
Kunst and all.
Welcome to another Staatsballet Hanover series. Today's guest is Roger van der Poel, a Portuguese-Dutch dancer, educator, and stager born in Portimao, Portugal. He trained at Lisbon's National Conservatory before beginning his career with Ballet Gulbenkian and later Ballet du Grand Théâtre de Genève. He went on to dance for over a decade with the Nederlands Dans Theater, performing works by leading choreographers like Geary Killian, Crystal Pite, William Forsythe, Sol León, and Paul Lightfoot while touring internationally. Roger has also developed an active career as a stager and rehearsal director. He has staged several works by Sol León and Paul Lightfoot for companies such as Zurich Ballet, Norwegian National Ballet, the Paris Opera, Bolshoi Ballet, the National Ballet of Canada, Bayerische Staatsballett, Stuttgart Ballet, and most recently Staatsballett Hanover, with their famous work Schmetterling.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Kunst and all. Hi Martin, welcome. I just want to say that this episode is in collaboration with Staatsballett Hanover, and today's guest is Roger van der Poel. Welcome, Roger.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Nice to have you.
As a start, if you could let us know what drew you into dance and what made you decide that this was going to be your job professionally.
This goes back to my time. I think I was about 14 years old because I started dance a little late. I was technically always wanting to be a singer and an actor. It was out of a trip that I did with school with my sister's class. My younger sister's class went to Lisbon to watch a musical, and I went with their class, and I sort of fell in love with musicals because I realized it was a job where you could mix the acting and the singing and performing, being on stage. So since I was a kid, like me and my sister used to put on little shows for the family. So it was musicals actually that drew me to this path that I'm not going to explain. So basically, when I was about 14 years old, some colleagues from school started taking jazz dance lessons in my local gym. There's like a gym in our town. And then after they did their few first classes, they came to me. They're like, "Oh, you should come with us. It's so much fun. I'm sure you'll love it." And then I remember being a little, hesitant, a bit like, because of course, out of ignorance, I thought, because of the word jazz dance, I thought of jazz music. And I couldn't understand how young people our age would be excited to dance to jazz music. I was like, I don't see what, no, it's like we use pop music and different music and you should come. So I did go once just to sort of watch, just to be there with them. And then the teacher kind of pulled me in and was like, "Hey, are you going to like sit down the whole time or are you going to try it with us?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I stood up, I started, and then at the end of class, she was like, "Are you intending to come back here?" And I was like, "Not really. I just came to watch." And she was like, "I think you should." So I did. And
Wow.
how I started dancing, that's how I started dancing. It was out of a class that I just tried, and the teacher kind of saw that I had some, I don't know, potential, or that I was interesting enough, because she saw that I caught the movements really quickly, whatever they were teaching me, because the whole group already knew what they were doing because they were, repeatedly doing stuff. And then it was, of course, like the typical story of like 30 girls in the room, and then there's class, I'm alone, feeling a bit like, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. So then that I was with them for 1 year, for one school year. It was a once a week thing. It was like a hobby, like on Fridays from, 7 to 8 p.m. Simple. And then I did do a few local performances for like gyms and like before, I don't know, a football game or something in our local gyms. And then someone suggested that I would go to a different teacher that had a bit more, like the range of things that he taught was a bit bigger. Like he had like ballroom dance, he had some sort of like aerobic fitness dance and jazz dance lessons. And that was where I started understanding more of dance. So I started taking more classes a week. They started teaching me different things about dance and the body. And and showing me dance movies. So everything started to like opening up a new world for me. And then when I was finishing high school, I was like, okay, I think I want to give dance a go. So basically, then what happened was in Portugal we have the Dance Conservatory of Lisbon as the main, let's say, main schools of the country. There's several, but the main ones in the capital are like the Dance Conservatory of Lisbon. But then you also have a dance university. So in my case, because I was, of course, old, right? I was graduating high school. I was ready to go to college. So in order for me to sort of keep dancing, I would naturally have to go to a university because of my age. So I did go to Lisbon to get informed. And I remember this, I went on a trip with my mother to check the school. And out of, just coincidence, the dance conservatory and the dance university are across the street from each other. So it's not like different points of the city. They're literally like on the same street.
Right.
So my mom kind of saw the plaque saying school, dance school of the National Conservatory. And she's like, oh, like, why don't you go? And I said, well, because, I've graduated. It's like, go and ask. I was like, okay. So I knock on the door. And someone did ask me, because of course they could see that I was not a kid. So they go like, yeah, but how old are you? And I'm like, I'm going to turn 18. They go like, yeah, sorry. Like, you're 8 years too late.
Yeah.
You should have started between 10, 11, 12, So I asked, of course, the lady that was there in the main office just said that. And I left. I was like, okay, great. Thanks for the information. I went across the street to get all the paperwork to know how to apply for the College of Dance. And I saw that they had a dance summer intensive. How many schools do their summer. So me and one of the girls who used to dance with me in my local gyms, and then we did performances throughout hotels with her. She was part of the group. We were together like, let's go to Lisbon and do this summer course. I was like, oh, let's do it. So we registered for, I remember it was modern class and floor bar class, because you could pay per class. You could say, I want to do this for a week or this for 2 weeks. So we're like, let's just do floor bar and modern. And then these are like coincidences of life or serendipity, basically. The teacher who was teaching floor bar exercises was a teacher of the conservatory, as was the modern teacher, but he's the one who kind of came to talk to me. So after my second class, he came to talk to me and was like, hey, we're like, where have you been? Where are you from? What do you like? What's your plan? Where have you been dancing? Do you intend to be a dancer? So we had a little chat, and I did say that my intention was to, focus on dance now. And then he asked me if I would, be interested in going to the conservatory. And I did say, well, I did go and ask, and I am too old for it. And he goes like, yes, I am a teacher there, and I can talk to the director. My question is, if you would be offered a position there, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, I would be interested. So that's what happened. The following day, he said, after class, can you come with me across the street, literally across the street to the school? Sure. So we took me there to meet the director of the school. And that was kind of it. She introduced herself. Hi, my name is Cristina Pereira. Shout out to Cristina. So basically, she had a super short chat with me. She's like, oh, I heard from Pedro Carneiro, teacher Pedro Carneiro, that you're taking the classes and you're interested in dancing. Ta 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 ta. So yeah, so great. So we started on September 17th. Da, 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 and I was like, okay. So how does that happen? And how does this happen? And she just goes, yeah. So we'll see you on September 17th. I was like, okay. So that was it. Like, I didn't do any crazy paperwork or calls. It was just kind of like, on the 17th of September, you show up and you start classes. And I was like, so bizarre. And so that's kind of like what happened. I began my dance path, my more, let's say, serious focused dance path that way. So I went to the conservatory, and I tried also because my dad was a little worried about like how dance would actually give me like a future, stable, financially stable and all that. We were like, okay, I'll try to do dance during the day and then study at night for college. So I did apply for a university for publicity and marketing, but after like a week of schedule of seeing that my dance schedule was too full. I was like, Dad, I don't think this is gonna work out. So I'm gonna focus on dance. And that's what I did. I did 2 years of dancing, and I started my professional career since then.
That's
Wow.
crazy. Did you know you wanted to go abroad, or it was just like how did NDT happen?
So yes, wanting to go abroad, I know since I'm like a child.
Oh, okay.
For as much as I do love my country, I love Portugal. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. It has so many amazing things. There was something from my childhood that I was always like, I need to go out there. I need to see the world. I need to, because of course, again, if you go back to my dream of like wanting to be a singer and an actor, of course that comes from like the movies, the Hollywood dream,
Yeah.
the Broadway. So my intention was to go out there and do those things. In Portugal, it was just like, let's say, in my point of view at the time, was like, it's a small world, right? I come from like a small town and I grew up, so I was born in like a small city, and next to the city, I was raised in like the fisherman's village. So it's all very small and very
Hmm.
limiting for someone who had these like big dreams of going out there. So I always knew I wanted to leave. So as soon as that first opportunity came, I did.
Wow.
Because my first job was still in Lisbon. It was a fantastic company that no longer exists, unfortunately. It was a Gulbenkian Ballet. It was a company that was, for those who don't know, and for the newer generations who've never heard of it, it was at some point, even on a couple of reviews, it was mentioned as like the NDT4, because NDT had
Oh,
three,
three. Yeah.
three, and there was like, it's like the NDT4 because the repertoire was similar. We had, Kiel
Amazing.
and Forsyth, Ohad. So all the big names at that time were like
Wow.
working well. So it was like a fantastic company. So I had the privilege to be there for one season. And then during the season, we had a tour to Switzerland for what was it called? The Steps Festival in Switzerland. So we toured there for a few days. And once we performed in Geneva, the director of that time, who unfortunately passed away last year, his name was Philippe Cohen, he went to see our show. And he was, prior to being the director, he was the teacher of one of my colleagues from Gulbenkian. So they had
Okay.
like dinner before the show, and then he invited him to watch the show, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And after the show, the director told my friend, was like, hey, because I remember coming out of like the door of the theater. It was actually a theater in a casino. So we actually technically came out of a casino, but it was a theater in Geneva that is inside the casino. And when I came out, I remember him looking at me and saying to my friend kind of like this. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then after the show, after they had their drinks or whatever, like he came and talked to me, said, listen, I was having, a drink with the director and he really wants you to call him. I think he has a position open and I think he will
Wow.
offer it to you. I was like, what? So then he did. Like I called him and we spoke and he said, you have to come, officially you have to come and do a class and we need to see you in person. But, technically he's like, I'm interested. So I did go on a couple of free days we had after the tour. I went there and he offered me a job. And then that was like, okay, this is my ticket abroad. This is how I'm going to leave Portugal. Yeah. And then continuing for your question about NDT, while I was there, a former colleague of mine from Gulbenkian, so this is all interconnected, he had some friends that had gone to NDT2 a few years prior. And he had always told me while I was in Gulbenkian, he always told me, you should audition for NDT2. And I was always like, nah, there's no way. And also because I had only like 2 years of like dance, I only had learned ballet for 2 years, and I was like, it's not going to happen. So for the first year in Gulbenkian, I did an audition. And then while I was in Geneva, he came to visit, and we had a guest ballet teacher called Kim McCarthy, Australian former dancer of the Compañía Nacional de Danza in Madrid. And then my friend was like, hey, Kim, you got to talk to this kid. I was like, what's up? I was like, well, I'm trying to convince this boy to go and audition for freaking NDT2. And the teacher kind of looked at me and was like, you never auditioned? I was like, no. I was like, are you like, you never tried? I was like, no, like, there's no point. I was like, so he was kind of like a bit like, no, you're silly. Like, no, because, you have like a body that is like physically, in tune to, like, you should definitely give it a go. I was like, no. So he literally went online checked the website, and I was like,
Wow.
"It's the phone number of NDT. Give them a call and ask. Like, just ask and get informed. How do you do it?" So that's what I did. I called.
Amazing.
They explained, you got to fill in this little form. You got to bring it with you on the day you come. Have this and this and this prepared, and that's it. There was no, because back then anyone who would want to go could go. There was no
Yeah.
pre-select videos. There was no pre-approvals. It was like, you want to go, you just show up with your paper, your photo, and you're like, I'm here to audition. That's how it used to work. And so I did. I went to this big 500 something audition,
Wow.
audition, and I was kind of like, it's not going to work anyway, and I have a job, and I'm good, I'm in a company, my director likes me, I'm well paid. I was kind of like, I'm good, I'm
Yeah.
taking care of me to freak out. So I think that probably helped me, because I wasn't too like stressed and eager on what if this didn't happen. It was kind of like, well, I'm going to give it a try, but if not, I'll just go back to where I am. And I guess that probably, and I tend to say that to people when students ask me like, is it something I should think of? And I was always like, look, the most important is be yourself and be as calm as you can be. Just like, don't be too, because that will affect your movement. Sometimes we don't even think about it, but it's like, it will change the way you move if you're just like in this, just go have a good day, enjoy, meet new people, you get a nice ballet class from a guest teacher you never had. So just go and enjoy your day, and then put your effort, show that you're interested, and then if you're, fortunate enough for them to be interested in you and like you or see something in you, then that's it. And if not, also don't. It's easy to say because I got the chance to get in, but it's like, if you're not chosen, I always try to say this to people, don't think that like it means you're not good. It means you're not. It's just, maybe it's just not something they were looking for. Sometimes they need like a tall dancer this season. Now they need a short one that is really fast and technical. So there's always so many things that go into the decision of how they choose people, that people shouldn't always take it like, it's me, I'm not good, I didn't do well enough, I didn't do my best. It's like, it's so tricky. It's so tricky, right? But yeah, what can I say? I'm lucky me. I got chosen, and I was we were 4 men and 2 ladies that got in that season. It was a 6-year, sorry, a 6 people sort of audition that they were looking.
But then I'm just interested, like the more you were going on, because the audition is long, right? So the more you were going on, you were like, okay, like this is, because you had to present a solo. Was it the same like kind of
That's a
audition
good
mode?
question. That is a good question. So that specific year, okay, and everyone who auditioned with me that year, 2006, if you're watching or listening, you would recognize this. I did ask on the phone that I saw the form, and it says, like, where you come from, this and like what solo, what choreographer, blah, blah, blah. And I asked about it. And they did say, oh, well, yes, it's like we put as formality, but usually by the end of repertoire, the juries, or the people selecting, which is usually like the directors and the ballet masters and all, they already know. So lately we haven't really gotten to do a solo. So it was kind of like don't worry too much about it. You're fine. So that year, when we actually got so bit by bit, I got selected, and my friend actually who convinced me to go was there. And then of course, like you said, like how did it feel? Because of course I did class, and then out of my class, like 2 men were chosen. I was one of them, and I was like, oh, okay. So then you feel a bit like, okay, interesting, and then my friend's like, so, and I was like, well, yeah, they selected me for the afternoon. I was like, oh, see, I told you should try. I was like, oh, okay. And then I came in the afternoon because of course there was a lot of ballet classes.
Yeah.
Of people, and they tried to do like a short, like 35-40 minute class, just like a bit of bar and a bit of center. So I had to wait until like, I don't know, it started at 9, and I think we went all the way until like maybe 3-4 p.m. to continue the audition. So then in the afternoon we came for repertoire, same thing, selected to the next part. But technically we thought after the repertoire they know who they want, so they selected a smaller group, because when we went to repertoire we were maybe, I would say, about 20 something, maybe 30 people. I'm not so sure. I don't remember. But then after that, they selected a group of like, I don't know, 12, let's say 12 people approximately. So when they selected the 12, they were like, so now we would like to see. So
Oh.
everyone was a bit like, so you could see everyone's eyes go like, uh-oh. And I remember I actually was the one who spoke. I raised my hands like, oh, I don't know if we're all on the same boat here. But when I called, I was told it was not necessary. So I said, in my case, for example, because then they said like, if you have music, and then they saw that everyone was so like this, they were like, but don't worry too much about it. We just want to see you move in a different way and something that you feel comfortable, or something you improvise, or someone choreographed it for you, or you learned it at school. It does not matter. We just want to see you a bit more. So everyone was like with CDs, and people were
Yeah.
like with phones, and I literally had nothing. I mean, I had a soul that I worked in Geneva. I was, working, so I had stuff that I could show, but I was like, I have no music. I have nothing ready. So I just showed a solo in silence.
Word.
I'm assuming I was probably one of the only ones who was like, I walked in silence. I remember Paul Lightfoot, when I walked in the room, it was kind of like this, like, and your music, kind of like
Yeah.
this. And I'm like, sorry, I don't have anything. So then they're like, oh, okay, no worries, no worries. Start whenever you want. And then I start, like, my solo starts like walking from downstage all the way across the room, and then start the solo. So as I start walking, the ballet teacher kind of goes like, excuse me, is a lovely man. His name is Charles Moudret, Swiss. And he like an older man with glasses, and he was kind of very calm, very zen, like, excuse me. And I was like walking to begin. It's like, uh, would it be okay if we could see the work of your legs? Because I kind of wore loose legs for the whole audition. Because I was like, you always feel a bit like, oh, maybe I can try to hide my legs or something. You always find like, ah. So they were like, can you just like take the pants, so we could see like your leg work? And I was like, yes. So I did in like shorts, which I hate wearing shorts for dance. I know. So I basically did the audition in silence, in shorts and knee pads and socks to my knees, like footballer socks. It was like hideous, but I did. And yeah,
Word.
process went in that season.
Wow.
Mm-mm.
That's wonderful.
Now you're in NDT, right? You enter the company and stuff. Like, obviously, it's this huge name, and you're trying, like, because we were talking with Kennedy the other week, and she was saying how in the beginning she was really like, it was a new world for me. Like,
Right.
did you meet, like, had to work with choreographer that saw something you make you feel very comfortable, or like saw really were like, no, Roger, you can do it, you have this, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
took something out of you that was really precious and you could carry on, like, and bring it in other processes.
I mean, okay, so there's a mix of things here because, for example, when it comes to like knowing names, even like to be honest, even at some point, I didn't really know what NDT was or who they
Mhm.
were. And then when names started to, because then you're in the dance school, people talk about names, but a lot of them I had heard but never met the people. So, for example, just as an example, Yuri Killian was at the audition, Paul Lightfoot Sol León were at the audition, but I didn't know who they were. So when I walked in, I didn't have that like, oh, that's Mr. Keelan, that's Mr. Pollack, that's Sol León.
Yeah.
It was more like, oh, these are the people that run the company. Like this is the world I'm walking into, but I didn't know exactly who people were. But then once I got the job, of course, I guess it helped a little bit the fact that I was already working professionally for 3 years. I had been 1 season in Gulbenkian, 2 seasons in Geneva. So I had already worked with choreographers. I had people creating on me. So I guess that's a plus because when you come out straight from school and you go into like, creating with choreographers, you're like, oh my God, how is this going to go? But I already had a bit of experience, which helped. I do remember the day after the audition, the morning after, because usually the auditions were on a Sunday. And then on Monday, the company would go back to work. And I remember I missed my flight to go back to Geneva the next morning. So I had to call and kind of be like, sorry, I'm not coming in today. So it was a bit of a thing. But the next morning I did go into the theater because I already knew that I had, the job offer. So I
Mhm.
was kind of like, oh, let me, can I come and watch a rehearsal? And they're like, absolutely. So I did go and I walked into NDT2, which majority of the dancers were kind of younger than me or same age because I did audition kind of at the limit of the age, kind of just kind of after the limit. It was a bit of a thing. It was me and a couple more that we were above that age threshold there. So they were like, oh, okay. So and I remember just seeing the rehearsal and being like blown away from like, the choreography, the difficulty of the choreography, and how amazing everybody looked in it. And I was just like, oh, this is scary. I was like, am I going to be able to do any of what these kids, or I mean, kids, they were like 2, 3 years younger than me. It was not that much, but it was like, ugh. So then I was a bit like, wow, what am I going to do in that company? Like, is this going to work out? Like, am I being crazy here? So it did scare me a little bit, because I was like, this is hardcore. This impressive. Like, I was impressed by everything that was happening. And another thing that kind of got stuck with me, it was the way they worked, the way the rehearsals were led, how everyone was like teaching each other, and the director, especially at that time, Gerald Tibbs and head TV House, they were like sort of on the helm of NDT2, and the way they kind of made people work with each other. Older people that were there on like second, third season had to teach first season. It was very communal, and it was quite a gem, actually. I realized that kind of formed the way I became a dancer and a professional and a person throughout my time in NDT. It was those years in NDT2 that were very specific on the way to work and to train and to be and become. So then when I moved up to NDT1, that really is what the atmosphere is, the base. That's the base that they had. So then when I went to work there, of course, in the beginning, it's kind of still okay because you're learning repertoire and it's your colleagues teaching and the director is overseeing and then he's correcting. But then comes, the creations and the choreographers. And for example, let's say you're learning, I don't know, a Killian piece in the beginning. It's like, okay, but you're learning with your colleagues. But then Mr. Killian will walk in a room at week 3 to get it ready for the stage. And then you're like, okay, now you feel this sort of like, you already feel like you need to prove yourself in the company, because it's like, I need to show that, like that you're reliable, that you're a good dancer, that you can, that you're going to be great on stage. Like, you have so much that you feel you have to prove throughout your time there. And then when it comes to creating with someone, then again, I did have that plus of already having the experience with other choreographers. But now you feel like you're in this, the NDT level of dancing and level of difficulty, specificity of choreographies that are so hard that they feel like, okay, even if they're going to create with you, you kind of don't want to disappoint. You're like, okay, what is going to be created, you need to be there to create that. Otherwise, they're going to be like, okay. And then you would feel like, oh, then the interest will be, they'll be like, oh, well, okay, nice, but, and
Yeah.
want to feel that. So yeah, that was a little bit in the beginning, the feeling that I had. But then eventually, with time and getting accustomed to the system, the work, the colleagues, everything, then you like anyone anywhere, like going to a school, first couple of weeks or a month, you're a bit like, ugh, and then you're fine. So it's just getting used to it.
Beautiful.
I mean, before we dive into your experience working with Paul Lightfoot Sol León as a, I'm also interested in hearing because I was just reading through your website, and you've really worked with basically everyone who's like an important person in the dance world, and it's really amazing. And so I'm interested in hearing like how these different people shaped you, or like, from my experience, it's like you always take a little bit out of everyone, and then like you kind of, form yourself from all the that you hear. And so yeah, I'm interested in how that shaped you as a
Yeah.
as a dancer, as a person.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you're right. It's exactly that. I think you shape yourself as a dancer and as a person with a bit of everything and everybody. Uh, I guess working with different choreographers, what's good and interesting about it is that you start realizing with time, because in the beginning everything is new. So I always wanted to be this, and I guess it comes again back, if we go back to years back, it's wanting to be an actor. So for me, dance was always like, I want to embody every style, way of moving. If they want me to do something more classical, if they want me to do something more grounded, more floor work, I always wanted to really adapt. I didn't want to be like, well, this is how I move, and that's it. Never. I was like, no. If a no-had comes, if a Forsyth comes, if a Crystal Pie comes, if a Marco Gucca comes, and then having Killian and Paul Lightfoot and Sol León as the house choreographer. So every style for me was very important to be like as accurate and adaptive to the styles, which is something that I believe it's really important in repertoire companies, because I actually see a shift now with like younger generations, that a lot of people kind of have this feeling of, yeah, but this is my personality, this is how I move, this is what my body does, which I find fantastic, because some people are like incredible gobsmacking dancers, but when it comes to doing a role, right, it's because, again, like if I would be an actor and like suddenly you have to be the villain and you have to be the this and the that and the that, you have to be convincing, right? You need to be that. You can't just be you. So for me, dancing is a little bit like that too. It's almost like acting, but through body, less through like speech and emotion, but more like your physicality has to be a character, right? So for me, it was always important and interesting to work with different people exactly for that. So I could be more informed and have all the tools to move in different ways. So I didn't move like the Roger way. Oh, that's just Roger doing his thing. I wanted to be one that people go like, wow, Roger doing like Ohad looked fantastic. Oh, Roger doing Paul Lightfoot Sol León looked fantastic. It's like I wanted to be good at every style. So I really needed to get everything from everyone. And I was very, still am, I think it's one of my things, is I was very, I guess because I started dancing late, I knew that I had to catch up fast. For example, learning ballet, you have to understand, when I started ballet, the teacher was like, okay, we're going to go cinquième tendu, passé, names. And Roger's like, what the heck does that mean? So I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I was like, my eyes, my ears were like, I was like a sponge. I was like, whatever people do, you need to understand what they're doing and you need to figure it out, So I guess that in my career kind of kept stayed with me. It was like, okay, I need to like really look and understand and see the nuances. Otherwise I'm just like gonna do stuff. And that's not the goal here. Oh, sorry, I'm kind of lost a little bit in track, but
No,
like
beautiful.
about the different choreographers, how they shaped me. I think it made me assimilate more, obviously, but also with time later, because then of course in the beginning you're just like everything, and then later you go like, okay, this I relate more because of that. This connects more with that one that I like. This and then sometimes it's like I like, which is also important actually, not only about movement and choreographers as the artists, but also as the people, because then you kind of go like, okay, this kind of movement I love, the work is fantastic, but then maybe the relationship with the choreographer's way of working, you start also analyzing all that. So you kind of go like, okay, this I love, this I'll try to maintain for the future. If I would ever do this, I would do it more that way. I would be more like this person. Like you start kind
Yeah.
of like
Like the
and
importance of introspection. Like it
for
sounds
me,
like curiosity also is like a big word. Um, so you like really trying to gather as much information. Like it's almost a scientific kind of way. Like gather as much information as you can, and then have a look at it and try to analyze it. What you value more or less, or how would you approach it in a maybe different way?
absolutely agreed. Absolutely that. It's
And
exactly that.
there's also a question that came just to my mind because you were talking about all of this. You were part of like iconic creation, like this statement from Crystal Pie, so many of Marco's work that are still being done. Paul and so like you worked like you also staged their stuff. So I guess you're part of the process, but eventually some works that were created on you that you're not part of the process. As an audience member now, seeing it on other people, how do you like? Are you like, like I remember the intention was this, or you're just sitting like back and being like, like just enjoying the show, be like, oh, like I'm not sure this was. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
wonder if as a dancer, you having the same kind of process as an audience member now, or is how do you like see? Because I don't know, but like some people get jealous a bit of the roles they were created on. So I
mm,
wonder, because again, you've been part of iconic, like the statement of Crystal Pine, for example, all this I've just mentioned is like iconic work that is being staged all around the world. So I wonder how you are. like seeing this staged years
But
later on other dancers?
it's a great question. It's almost like hard to pinpoint an answer because I think there's so many things that can change your mood, which company you're working with, when are you doing the so because for example there are days or times, not days, there are times where I go to, let's say, see a show, a piece that I performed, um, and sometimes let's say, okay, say if I'm part of the staging process, of course my goal is to, it's kind of like now going back to being the sponge, I try to give as much to a person for them to spun, to like suck it all in, so it can be as closest, as closest, you don't say that, as close, sorry, as close to what the choreographers want it to be. But then, of course, some choreographers are also more open to like, oh, new people, the piece is reshaped, doesn't have to be the same. And some others are like, no, 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 no. We need to aim for this specific thing. So we need to like, if the dancer's not getting it yet, it's not like, oh, but it's their way. No, no, no. We need to like until it gets to that way. So every choreographer and piece kind of works differently. That's that way too. And then sometimes it's true that, for example, when I'm staging a work and then I go to the premiere nights, of course, I was involved in, the process, the teaching. So when you sit down, sometimes you're like, okay, you're almost like, let's make sure the lights are going to work. Let's make sure the dancer didn't miss the entrance. Did they do the thing that they asked them today to do? So sometimes your head is kind of like in the checking everything is okay mode. And some other times I just say like, and it's really like a thing that you kind of decide on the moment. You're kind of like, no, today, Roger, that's it. You're not, you're not going to take notes anyway, because on the premiere, we're not taking any like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy, watch, and, enjoy a performance. Like whatever the performance is, it doesn't matter if it's the same as what I did. It's just like, I'm just going to enjoy the dancers putting out the work and, so, but it is true what you're saying. Like sometimes you see a piece that you worked so in detail, and then when you see it again, and then maybe sometimes it's fantastic. You're just like, wow, they did a great job, and it's not the same as what you remember, but you go like, it's great, like it was fantastic, like it touched me, it got to me, I felt it, even if things were different. But some other times, it's true that you get a bit like, oh, it was, and then you go, was that changed, or does it no longer matter, those details that so it's normal, and it will happen to everyone forever. But I try to be as understanding and accepting that like things do
Mhm.
change, because I also know, for example, I did repertoire that was done before me, right? Like I've danced like
Yeah.
like Bella Figura or Sleepless or 2752. I know that as detailed as I was worked with for the piece, I'm sure the people that did it before me were probably like, well, you look great, but there's things missing, or it was not like that,
Mhm.
or that's not what I remember, or maybe it changed. So we never really fully know.
Yeah, true.
I guess the what I'm trying to say is the most important for me, the most important part, or the most special part of all of it, is the process of the people transferring to someone else. So in the end, it's like of course the result has to be as great as it can be, but like it's how everything is transferred. Like the love of transferring something you've done and something is something that you can help someone else to grow with or learn something from. That's the cool part, because then we're all like doing
Yeah.
something special, and at the end the result is the result, right? You expect it to be as best as it can be, but you can't control the result. The result is what's going to happen in the moment, right?
And I think that's a like a big beautiful part of dancing. This momentary thing that you have, that then you need to like transfer onto someone else, or like, and it's never the same, and some things get lost but some things get added, and it's like
Absolutely.
ever changing. Yeah.
Exactly. Ever changing art form. Exactly. And
Yeah.
some it's also, like you just said, some things are added. And when things are added, you go like, that's cool. You get like almost you go like, I wish we did that. Like I wish that was changed when I was doing it, because that's super cool. So it's yeah. And like yeah, it's ever changing, and every moment or show or rehearsal, it's like it will only happen once, right? Everything we'll do is like happen and it's gone. Like you can't repeat it. Next time you'll do it again, it's going to be different anyway. So yeah, it's that constant striving for it to be
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
there is always going to be different, no matter
Yeah.
how close to what you always try to do is going to be. It's never going to be the same.
So
Yeah.
you're here in Hannover staging Schmetterling from Paul Lightfoot Sol León. Do you remember the first time that you worked with them and what really struck you about their process or the way of working?
Yes, I do remember. I do remember actually. Actually, I do remember more. Basically, the first time I worked with them was in a piece that was already done. So I was learning a piece of repertoire. It was called is one of the most gorgeous pieces that they've had. Like in the earlier years, it's called "Subject to Change."
Oh,
So
yeah.
touching, gorgeous music, and beautiful with the red carpet, with one lady dressed in like a thin white dress, and then like four men and a, let's say, a main guy that is her partner. Beautiful, so touching. And I was learning that. And of course, one of the things that struck me was the uh, importance of detail, like working on very specific details for, countless hours. And I do remember that unfortunately, before we got to like stage time and all that, I did dislocate my left shoulder. So I could only perform it later on. So I didn't get to premiere it like with my premiere partner, let's say. But then I ended up performing it a lot throughout the 3 years, so I'm very grateful for that. It was a fantastic piece. But then I remember a little more clearly when I was creating with them. So right after that piece, we started creating the first piece that I was in the creation with them. So it was like let's say 3 months in from the company. That's when we started creating a piece called Sleight of Hand
Oh, yeah.
with the
Yeah, the towers.
So I remember in a creation mode, of course, and it's natural, the atmosphere is different than working on a piece of repertoire. Because of course, in the piece of repertoire, we were taught by colleagues, by the director, and then Paul and Saul would come in and work and clean, ask and demand different things. But then on creation, of course, it's from scratch. No one has anything to teach you. It's like, let's start something. And a couple of things that I remember from it, which are, marking, was seeing how, two people creating together, the dynamic that creates. Because, of course, it's not always easy because one person has an idea, the other has another. And then, of course, they both have to agree that that is going to be the version that's going to make it to the piece. So it was interesting for me to see the give and take and the compromising, and someone being very like strong on an idea and kind of like not letting go because they believe that idea is extremely necessary, and then sometimes the other way around, the other person going like, yeah, you know what, yeah, I think you're right. So all of that conversation as we're creating for me was very different because I had never worked with a choreographic duo. It was always solo artists, solo choreographers. So that was super interesting to see the difference and how that in the end of like the product, let's say, you can really see how this is the wrong word because to all the solo choreographers who would say this, but it's like the how it completes the work even more because there's two ways and two eyes and two personalities shaping the work. I think that always brought an extra thing to the pieces. And I remember also being quite surprised and actually at the time shocked, and then later being like, well, pleasantly surprised how, um, because there's when they're choreographing, you only see the product on stage, but then the process, people never know what's going on, right? So, for example, seeing how we were creating a piece, so we had worked, I don't recall the periods, but let's say we were working for, let's say, a month or whatever, or 3 weeks or a month on the piece. And how close, I think it was 2 weeks before premiere, if I'm not wrong. I don't want to lie, but it was like close to stage time, very close to our production time for lighting. they kind of saw like a bit of a run on in the studio still with us, and suddenly, I guess, at home they had their conversation and their discussions, and they were kind of like, they came the next day, it was like, okay, dancers, we don't really think the piece is what we want it to be. They were basically kind of like, we don't think that this is it. We're not happy with this, or we don't think that this is what we really necessarily want to show. So 2 weeks before premiere, they suddenly went like, okay, we're going to take a big risk with all of you, because we were, again, like the junior company, right? Less experienced professionals. So like, we're going to take a risk here, but we're going to sort of swipe a lot of the thing out, and just sort of, some things we did keep, material we did keep, but a lot of other things are just like, take this out, let's start something new. So we all started a new piece on top of the piece that was being made. So everything got like shifted, cast change, couples changed, sections were thrown away, characters were different in the story that they had sort of like planned, characters changed. So we were all like, vroom, a whirlwind. They were like, let's make a new piece. Like, and for me, I remember being shocked at the time, being like, what? Like, are they crazy? Like,
Yeah.
all of the things we've done already. And it was like kind of ready, because we were doing a run before we would get, and they were like, yeah, we don't really like connect with what we're seeing, where this is not. So that was another thing that struck me from working with them, was seeing how, choreographers of that level still have their their doubts, and they're like, their resistance to something that they thought was like on the go, ready to go, and then they go like, oh no, let's not, this is not what we wanted. So that was something that I remember clearly from being like, wow, this is quite unexpected. I've never experienced this in my short professional career. I've never expected this to be even possible to happen, that people just go like, change. So yeah, that was another insight.
Wow.
Mm-mm.
I think it's also like, I guess, reassuring to hear that the choreographers that you're working with are holding themselves to a high standard, so that like you're like, that what they end up presenting, like, you can stand behind it, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah,
it feels
absolutely.
sometimes it's like, well, it's not really what I want, but we just kind of have to go through with it. And it feels like then it puts this like weird feeling on you as a dancer, as like, I'm not sure I believe in what I'm doing. I'm not sure the choreographer believes in what we're doing, but we're just gonna have to go through with it. And then I don't know if that creates a good environment either.
Absolutely, because that has also happened in my career with other people. There are sometimes moments where you're a bit like, and it's not, and it's, I mean, normal. Let's say it can happen, and it happens. We're all human.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are times where you're a bit like, you don't know how you connect with a piece or with the work, or that's why me, like professionally, I always try to be, again, like try to be that actor sponge. Like, you just need to, someone gives you a role, you have to find a way to make that role, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether it's interesting, whether it's boring, it does not matter. It's like, you gotta put in the glove and become that, right? Otherwise, like you just said, if you don't believe in it and you don't stand behind it, then when you perform it, I guess it comes across, and it
For
shouldn't come
sure.
across
Yeah.
technically, because like, the expression show must go on. Basically, when you're on performing, you're giving it, like you're acting it, right? The actor is when the camera says action, you go. You're not like action, you're like, well, I'm not sure if I want to be the villain right now, because this villain is badly written. You can't really, so yeah.
Their work has like a very strong theatricality and extreme physicality. As a dancer, what were the biggest challenges for you, and did they change throughout all the different creation that you did with them?
I think because they are so specific on what they want and look for, specifically with Paul and Saul, they guide you and coach you to like, for you to do what they want to see, what they want to get out of it. So when it comes to like theatricality, because of course there's different ways to approach theatricality in their work, because of course they don't want things to be overly dramatic and pantomime, like, like all these,
Yeah.
they don't want it to be that, because then they believe that it becomes a little bit like fake. It's fake acting, is like putting a fake mask just to like, but it kind of comes from the choreography and from like the imagery that you have of an emotion of or a situation that they specifically kind of bring it out of you in the moment. It's like, okay, when you do this thing, like they'll give you so much imagery that when you do it, you're not just like putting on a face or, making like an expression, so to speak. It really comes out of the movement and out of the internal feeling of what that movement does to you. So it's less from out to in. And someone recently responded that in the studio, funny enough.
Yeah.
You guys was like, because it's interesting when we see their work, there are small things that sometimes that on the side of the dancer, we have a hard time to, we kind of go like, oh, like they're asking for this, but I don't get it, but I thought I did it. And they're saying it's not coming across and I don't understand. And then eventually it's funny because when you're sitting from the front, when you see it done in that different way, right away, like our reaction would be like, that's it. It's almost like we see it, we go like, that's it. But the dancer doesn't always necessarily kind of understands like what, like, oh, I didn't realize I did anything very different from last time. I think I did similar. But then there's something that then people, when you go, well, like that's it, and then people start to like tune into that and they go, oh, because I was doing more this and thinking of that, and now I'm not. And that's when specifically saw the other day was talking, for example, with one of your colleagues, Natalie, and Natalie said like, oh, this time I thought from the inside out. Like I did not think of anything out here. I just thought of like going in my thoughts and thinking of all the images he gives. She was basically saying, I don't put on the face or the character of the character that I'm playing. It's just more like if you think of the character and try to live the character, your body will do it. You don't have to like, oh, I need to be like this. It's like if you think of that thing, your body will technically do it. And it's funny how sometimes, you know, as a dancer, because of course I'm still dancing a little bit. I'm close to like the dancer side of things and seeing it so much from the outside, even staging while I was a dancer in the company, because I started staging while I was still dancing for the company. You can really see how many times a movement looks different just because of what you think and not because of what you do. And I noticed that because I teach a lot of classes here and there and abroad. And when I teach, let's say, younger groups, or when I teach people that are, let's say, they don't have like a fantastic classical training, but they do some ballet. But then, and sometimes I kind of start my classes being like, does anyone here not like ballet? And people are kind of afraid. I was like, no, please respond, because like I don't mind that people don't like ballet. Like everybody has their right to love it or hate it. But because they're, in the dance world, you tend to have to do the classical training as a base for further for furthering your other techniques later on as well. And I do realize that a lot of people come to me after classes in summer intensives and whatnot, and they always say that the reason why my class helped, it's not because of what I do, like tendu, fifth, it's not what I do, is what I say. Because then what I say, they like image wise, let's say I'm talking about a balance, I don't say stay on your balance, pull your ribs up. I'm like, I give images, and then people really use the imagination. And when you use that imagination, your movement does physically, technically, scientifically change. It changes the way it happens just because you're doing it with another thought. Yeah.
Sure. How did the process of also staging their stuff came about? Were you like, oh, Roger, we see you're someone that can retain a lot of details and you're very faithful to your region. How did it came? Were you like, oh, maybe this would be nice? Like, was it ever an idea that you wanted to do this in the future, or how did it came about?
So while I was in NDT 2, in my beginnings, I was, again, because of all I said before, being new to dance and wanting to be a sponge and learning as fast as I could and as best as I could and be as best of my capabilities, I think it sort of, how do you say, transpired. I don't know if that's the word to use here, but like it became evident and shown from the people on the other side that they could see that I was really like retaining details. And if someone would and that's a good thing that we had at NDT at that time. because the atmosphere of teaching each other is what the director kind of like made happen. That's how he led the company. It was like it needs to be a communal transferring of information and of helping each other, because one thing that we had very strong at that period, I remember, is like we never got upset or annoyed at each other when we were corrected between us. Kind of like, oh, you're doing this wrong. It was never like a, what do you mean I'm doing it wrong? I'm doing it. It was never like an attack. It was almost kind of like, oh, guys, I think it was like, wasn't it like through there? And they go, oh, yeah, yeah. So it was always like a conversation to get the details always correct. And I remember being, one of the people that was, kind of, but remember they said, oh, yeah. So everybody had that. I was like, oh, yeah, Roger's right. So that kind of naturally happened. So I guess eventually that, probably made Gerald Tibbs at the time kind of notice it. I don't know. I could ask him, hey, Gerald, let's call him now. No, I'm kidding. But then eventually it happens a lot that on tours, when NDT2 goes on tour, even NDT1 does sometimes, but NDT2 did that a lot. When we would tour somewhere, some school or some, or even organized by the theater where we would present the work, they would organize workshops for people locally who would want to like take a dance class or learn what they were going to watch on a show the following night. Or so we would all the director always chose a dancer to teach those workshops. It's like, okay, you're going to teach that section that you're performing tomorrow, you're going to teach that tomorrow in this workshop. So I was asked a couple of times, and I was still in my, let's say, early time of NDT2, because I did it for 3 years, and already I believe in my first season he had already asked me once. And then I remember asking if I could teach something that I had taught in a workshop that he saw me teach. I said, can I teach this in a school of a friend? I have a friend in Slovakia that has a dance school. I guess that kind of showed like, oh, Roger's teaching, he's interested in teaching, but I didn't plan like, oh, in the future, I want to teach or I want to be close to choreographers. It was never like a plan of mine. Not that I was like, oh, let me shape my path to get that in the future when I stop dancing. It was never the goal, never. And then after a workshop that I taught for NDT, and my director did come and sit down and watch me teach, so he was present watching me do it. And at the end of it, he was not very like, wow, you did great. It was not like, emotion. But he did come and was like, Roger, well done. Very like well taught class. He was kind of like, hey, bravo, you did a great job. You should be proud. I was like, oh, okay. And with time, so that is like, let's say the beginning of it. Then what happened was, the NDT at that time, the NDT Summer Intensive still didn't exist. It was in connection or in collaboration with another group, and it was called the Maximum Dance Course. But they would invite some NDT dancers to teach for that course, right? Because then we could teach maybe some Killian repertoire, Paul and Sol repertoire, ballet classes. So they would like have a mix of teachers from different places to do that course. And then eventually NDT created their own after that. But there was 1 year where, because what happens is the summer intensives always happen 2 weeks during the summer holidays of NDT.
Yeah.
And back in the day, which I think it changed a little bit, maybe before COVID, the first week was in the holiday, and the second week was during holiday, and the end of it, like the end of that week, was when the company would come back, take their first day of class, have the first weekend, and start that. So people would come back, and all the dancers would be able to even see the presentation of the summer intensive. So it was like a little bit of a crossover. But there was that 1 year where they had to shift a week. So it was literally 2 weeks in the holiday. And then you would have, let's say, a little bit more time of holiday and start. So there was one dancer was like, I am not going to lose my 2 in the middle of my summer. So he said, I can do the second one, which would mean the first one of the previous type of scheduling. And then the person from the education department of NDT asked me if I would be interested and available to teach for the first week, because the other person was not interested in doing the first week. So I said yes, because I thought it would be, a great experience. And it went fairly well. to my understanding. And then the following year they asked me again, but then they asked me for 2 weeks. And then it's sort of naturally started happening every year. So I did almost technically every year the summer intensive NDT except for 2018 and 2020 or one or something. But other than that, since I started, I did every summer intensive teaching. And I remember eventually they added, which was never my plan because I didn't think I had any strength in that, but they were like, no, we want to see you grow in that as well. So they asked me to add to my roster to add ballet classes, to teach ballet classes to the younger group, like the ballet warm up for the day. It was not like a classical technique coach. It was more like a company style, as like, okay, let's do a ballet warm up, or they do the day of repertoire and all that. And I remember being very nervous for that. I do remember that. It was super nerve-wracking to teach my first few ballet classes. I remember the first night I barely slept. I was going through combinations like
Oh, wow.
the whole night. And to say that I started feeling, obviously with experience, more and more comfortable. And then quite in the beginning of these summer intensives, I remember Paul and Sol, because again, it used to overlap with the first week of work. So the company was always back. So they did see a presentation where, the male dancers would present like a male solo, the female solo, partnering, duets. And then from what I had taught, I remember them coming to me after and going like, oh, you taught this solo? I was like, yeah. Like, and how long did you have? I was like, I had the 5 days because it was 2 weeks. So 1 week was this repertoire, this repertoire. It's like, oh, I had 5 days, 1 hour and a half a day or 1 hour a day. And they were like, I remember them being a bit like, well done, like they looked, the dancers looked pretty, they were doing what they're
Totally.
supposed to do. So they were a bit like, oh, okay. And they were like, oh, and did you like teaching it? And I was, oh yeah, it was, wonderful being with the dancers. And they're like, oh, okay, you like it? Like, yeah. And I guess all of that made eventually me start becoming a stager for them, because then they sold a piece, sleight of hand, that my first creation with them, to Zurich Ballet at the time. And they wanted someone to stage it, right? Because someone needs to teach the ballet to the company. And of course, the only ones who would know would be or the dancers or the ballet masters. But the ballet masters were the director and head at House, so they were full-time in the company. They couldn't just leave. So they asked me and another girl, yes, me and Sarah the first time, I believe. Sarah Reynolds, well, yeah, it was Sarah Reynolds and we were asked to basically stage it on the dancers, but because of our schedules, it was a little tricky. So what they had was some of the characters that we would teach, they came to Holland and stayed with us. They would do warm up with us and all that.
Oh,
And then
nice.
after hours, when we would finish our work, we would work with them on the piece. So they were there as well. So Paul and Sol were present as we were staging. So it was very
Yeah.
natural the way it all happened. So eventually that piece was sold again. So that was a few years later, and then it was for Oslo Ballet. So then similar thing happened. We had some people come over, and then that time, so we had some people come over, we taught some, but then I had an actual leave of absence for like a month and a half or 2. So then I could actually go to Oslo and do the actual teaching there. And then eventually, some years later, it was Paris Opera who did it. So sleight
It
of hand kind of
started.
became that every time it was being redone, they were asking me to do it with them. And then in some occasions, like when I was in the company teaching something, if something else of theirs was being done, I would be always with them helping out. So I kind of started, being involved in a bit more in this and a bit more in that. So eventually when they left the company and I left the company, so when everything sort of shifted and they started doing more work abroad, then I sort of, like you were asking, naturally, it just sort of started to happen that I became part of their team. And now I'm, let's say, my main job, besides doing little dance projects here and there, mainly with them as well, but I am a stager for Poel and Sol mostly.
Beautiful. What is the hardest aspect you think is to like the harder to pass on to dancers, let's say? or the trick is?
I don't know. It depends on the dancer. It depends on the companies. Because some people, you'll expect something to maybe be hard, and then you go to a place like, oh, well, that was a piece of cake. And then to other places, you go like, oh, here we won't this or this problem. And you go like, oh, this is being really hard. So it really is a, case by case scenario. You don't really know what you're going to encounter and how people are. I don't know. I don't know if there's a specific thing. It's just that, of course, like we mentioned before, like with their work specifically. So of course, now I can talk about their work, but I can talk about other things too. What is harder to transmit to people with their work is details are so specific, and on the other hand, they are so specific that on the other hand, there's a freedom that comes with being overly specific. So once you're overly specific for so long, it kind of it becomes a part of you. It's in your skin. So then when you do it, it no longer becomes it's just part of you. It's almost like you become another thing. So it's when you're transmitting something to dance, it's like, how do we get people to go to this extreme shoot for the stars? Kind of like a movement has to be like more and more than you think your body can actually do. It's just more than that, because people sometimes, and again, we go back to the brain, sometimes we believe we have a limit, which naturally we have to have a limit, right? We're not limitless, but there is a limit. But there is something about our brain and our body that, like, our body thinks, okay, this is the limit. This is my limit of my capacity over how far I can go, or how hard I can do this, or how fast I can do this. Like, there's like, oh, this is how much my body can do. But it's trying to find a way for dancers to sort of like pass that without being irrational and hurting themselves and just kind of like doing it like, well, and then you're like broken and injured. That's not the point of, like, finding a way for the brain to like fight for this further, so that later when you're doing it, that further is just your base level. It's your zero is that further. So then when you're working from that further, sky's the limit. But getting people to get there is what is like, okay, because it's like, again, like we're talking about the brain, is like, how can we make each dancer also perceives things differently and will work in here differently, but it's how to, from every dancer, get the brain to click into their buttons, because not everybody clicks the same way. Right? Like I'll give a cue to a dancer like, oh, I can't do this balance. I'm like, okay, think of this, think of this, think of this. The person is like, and then you say the same thing you said, that another person heard it and they go like, oh, that works. It's like, for them, it's like, that was the magic pill. It's like, boom, that works, and forever this is gonna work for me. And then you're like, okay, so then you're like, okay, it's not working. Then you're like, and it's that conversation, it's like, okay, what else can I say to get that? So you're always trying to find ways to make people go like, and then when people have that little moment, is when I go, that's
Yeah.
my joy, is when I really see people kind of feel like they discovered something, that they were like, that never clicked. And I'm like, that's it. That's what brings me joy, is getting people to
Beautiful.
Also very much appreciated from working with you, kind of the balance you had between like teaching the steps, the details and the quality of them, and then like just giving out general advice, like how to portray something, or like you were mentioning when we were doing the scream, like to project out, and these like little details that I feel like I can now really have in my back and keep them forever with me. And they don't necessarily count just for the steps that we learned. They're just like a general advice that are very useful for forever.
yeah, exactly. That, again, that little
Yeah,
getting from different things to then make us more complete,
yeah,
right? Because for me, it's like, I always wanted to be like because of the acting thing, I was like, I need to be like a chameleon, right? So it's like, I need to have as much as there was actually, okay, this is totally off topic, but there was a series that we used to watch as a family in my house after dinner. It was I think it was called, if I'm not wrong, it was called The Pretender. And it was, and I honestly, that was like almost my my life portrayed in a series is like, this is what I want my life to be. It's this series because it was a guy. He was, I think he was like I don't know, some sort of a genius when he was a kid, and he had a girl in him. They were raised together under this like lab, American, like exploiting this like these little kids' brains because they were genius and they could become in the future like incredible like criminal manipulative kids that they could use for like CIA and all. It was like a whole thing. And what was amazing was like this company was always trying to catch him when he was an adult. They were like trying to find him. And this girl that he was raised with was part of that like mean company, So she was like she was like the boss of like trying to find the guy. And he was almost in every episode, of course, because that's how you get people excited. At the end of every episode, it was like they almost catch him, but they lose him on the last 5 seconds of the episode. Boom, he gets away to escape. And in every episode, he had to sort of rebuild a new life because he was trying to never be found. So it's like suddenly you would start a new episode and he's a mechanic in a little town. Then the next episode he's like a doctor. And he could, because of course he was like a little genius, he could actually do all of those jobs. He could be a surgeon, he could be a mechanic, because he could do everything because he was so intelligent. And for me as a dancer or an actor or whatever, it was always that. It was like being able to always be different by knowing as much as you can know. So the more movements I understand, the more acting skills I understand, the more singing skills I understand. Like the more I understand, the more my body is like, wow, you could really be this chameleon. Like if you need to do something, you can do it. Like your body has the tools inside of you that you can just like put them together, be like, okay, now you have to do this. Got it. I'll do it. Instead of just being like, I don't know, I've never really tried it, So the trying and the experimenting and the getting that knowledge like bigger, that is for me the excitement of life and our work and life in general. Just a
And like with the acting, do you have for the future any plans of trying to like go into acting more specifically?
You know what? It's been asked recently because of course I left NDT in 2020. And some people that know me closely and knew like, the Broadway dreams and the acting dreams are like, well, this is the moment. Like you're no longer a dancer, you're not attached to the company. Go audition, try, da da da. But then of course, uh maybe being scared, or maybe because you're not sure if you're going to get it right away, and because of the career that I had that was like at a certain rhythm and level, I guess, because also of the path that I've taken now of like being a stager and still performing for projects. In order for that to happen, I really would need to be like almost make like a cut and just be like, okay, I need to like stop this and try to focus on something else, because with the rhythm that I have, I don't think it would be possible to be like always trying to like, go here, go audition. I don't really have that capacity or capability right now. But is it something that like if magically, a project would like come up and I would be like, because of course the regular normal way would be for me to like put in the work, fight, audition, go to know people, da, da, da. But of course, at this time, like in the ideal world, it would be someone be like, hey, Roger, I'm doing this project and I thought of you because I heard you do this, I heard you do that, and I would love to, that would be like, whoa, okay, because luckily for me, like in the dance world that I've had a little bit of like possibilities, let's say, in some of the pieces that I've performed for NDT and Geneva and Portugal, maybe not so much, but like in Gulbenkian. But in Geneva, I had the chance, for example, to sing in the performances, and then in NDT that happened again. So I've sung for Crystal Pite's work. I've sung for Paul and Sol's work. I've sung for Sidi Larbi Cherkawi's work. So the singing has been a part of my performances, which is, and also for two pieces, or maybe three even. With Paul and Sol was maybe two, and for Peter Chu's company Chu This, I've done a piece in Orsolina where I sang.
I saw, yeah. I
You
saw an
saw that?
expert. No, there's like a trailer or something, and it's you from Tommy Pascal or something, and you
Yes.
were singing. I was like, oh my god, so beautiful in
Oh,
Portuguese.
in one of them was in Paul and Sol's piece, that maybe that's the one you're thinking of, because that one is on a trailer. I'm singing a fado in Portuguese in Paul and Sol's piece, which is a piece that they knew I sang because I performed that song in Crystal Pite's piece. So that's how that
Oh,
song,
beautiful.
I performed it for the first time. And then when we did it in Rocinante, they were like, can you sing that song? It's Portuguese. I love the meaning. So I did that again. And then when I went back with Chudis's residency in Orsolina, Peter was like, would you sing a song? I was like, absolutely. Like, don't ask me twice. So then I sang for another piece of his. It was also a Portuguese song, but a different one. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to sort of enjoy singing live on stage, and also the pressure of like singing live, knowing that I'm not a trained singer and that like your voice needs to like sound good, and even if you're gonna be out of breath from dancing, you just need to sound good because you're like running. And I remember this show in Orso, because for example for Crystal Pites, I started with a song and I ended with a song, the piece, so I had, let's say, time to relax before the moment happened. Not the second time around, actually. I had a big marathon to change from the statement into the new piece. I had like 4 minutes to get into clown outfit, make a microphone, and go and sing. So that time I didn't have much time to breathe, actually. But then when I did with Peter Chu in Orsolina, I remember we did the whole performance on stage, and then because he was trying to make me come like through the audience, from the back of the audience, to start singing and go to stage. But this is like towards the end of the piece. So I do this whole piece. I had done a duet with him before, then we had a break, then we had another piece. And then we were like, because it's an open air stage, for those who don't know, maybe you've seen it online, but like, or seen gorgeous vineyard, and it's a gorgeous, fantastic place. But we were like, how do we get you behind the people without them seeing you? Because it's like, it's not a theater. So we had one of their team. It was so cute. One of their team was on a golf cart waiting for me downstairs stage. So I run downstage after I do my last part on dancing. I run down the stairs, grab the microphone, sit on the golf cart with him. He drives me around. There's like a vineyard that is like not visible from the audience. So he drives me around the vineyard while I'm putting the microphone. And then I arrive from the back, and then I just like get off the cart and I have to sing. And the song is like a cappella, no music. And I was like, well, here goes pressure. Thank you very much. So yeah, but it was super fun. And with that said, I've had also, it's not entirely like any actor would be like, well, Roger, that's not the same, which it's true. It's not the same. I didn't have to learn any like text or monologues or act other people, but you do get a bit of an let's say an acting taste when you're doing certain type of pieces. And when we did 3 creations with the choreographers of Peeping Tom, it was Franck Chartier and Gabriela Carrizo. We did 3 creations at NDT that then became a full evening show, which their company now is performing all over the world, which is fantastic. It's called, now they call it the Triptych. In our time, it was called Adrift. It was the name of our, let's say, the evening. It was called Adrift. And the pieces are The Missing Door, The Lost Room, and The Hidden Floor. And the way we worked for those creations were very much on the acting side of performing. It was not so much on like, it was, of course, it involved a lot of movement, and the movement is still kind of a lot of the base for the piece, but it was a lot of like acting exercises, coming up with ideas from movies, and it was a lot of different process of working. We weren't learning steps. They were like giving us like little prompts. Okay, well, let's try to build a scene, and then we could all build scenes with each other, and then you would have to have your own idea. And if you needed someone, you say like, hey, I need a scene with 2 people sitting, and then I come and I do this and this and that. So we would have to do so much of that. So then when you do the show, of course, the show, there's no like a movie camera type of acting, just like no talking, no, but there was a lot of body acting throughout the show that kind of, let's say, gave me that joy of like, oh, okay, you get to like taste little bits of different I don't know, realms or art forms or whatever. So I can't complain. I've had a lucky, full, successful life of trying so many things. But it's true that I've never had let's say I've never done a theater play, I've never done a movie, I've never done a musical, I've never done any of those, but at least I have experienced something of sorts that always brought me joy because of something that I always wanted to try. Doesn't matter that the future, it doesn't matter it will never happen. It doesn't matter I will, never try it or never have a chance. Well, let's see. The world will, time will tell. But yeah, I would enjoy trying something like that. It would be a thrill. But right now I know that what I'm doing is not giving me enough time to do it. But if opportunities arise, let's see.
We have some closing questions to ask. Maybe what continues to inspire you about working with dance today? Because I think like what you also see maybe in the future of dance, and where do you think things are moving? If there's a certain direction you see.
What still interests me is the work with the people. What still interests me is it's the exchange between dancers, because I'm also, on a personal level, I'm a very social person. So I like being with people. I like talking. I like discussing. I like enjoying. I like going for dinners and drinks. So transposing that to the professional side, what I like is the exchange. So it's the discovering together, talking, explaining, figuring things out. All of that exchange is what I find the most beautiful part of the job. And then when it comes to like dance in itself, what I hope that still remains and is what still keeps me interested is creativity. It's people being creative, people trying new stuff, being daring, so that when we see something, let's say a new choreography put on a stage, there's always something new to look forward to. And it doesn't mean, which is a tricky thing, because then people are like, oh, I need to be innovative. I need to be flashy. I need to be amazing. Like the always having a full on end goal for something can be limiting, because then it's like, oh, I want to be innovative. So everything you do is just like innovate. And you go like, okay, that end goal is kind of like doing something too that is not necessarily fully helpful. I think I don't know, because tricky to say, because I'm not a choreographer myself. I've only maybe created 2 solos in my whole entire life, very recently in the last 2 years. So I'm not necessarily like, I've never, created a piece of work. But from all I've seen and all I've experienced with all the choreographers that I've worked with, I think things have to have a little bit of like balance. And on the other hand, it has to kind of go a bit naturally. So there's a goal, but then there has to be a sort of like let go of the goal, but the goal is there just to inform you, otherwise people restrict themselves so much that then when you see work, sometimes it can be either too much of the same, or too overachieving, or too all over the place, which on the other hand is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, because of course creativity has to allow that to happen. So people have to make all the mistakes and all the things that people criticize them for, which, by the way, a little note to the world, because I feel like nowadays everyone just loves criticizing everything. Can we stop it, please? Can we stop? And this is to the world. It's like, because nowadays, like, no matter what is said, what is done, what is shown, if it's a picture, if it's a comment, if it's a movie, people just criticize it. And to a point where I feel like people, not only we have an opinion, everyone has an opinion, not only everyone wants to let the world know of their opinion. It's almost like we all need to know what your opinion is of everything that happens around the world. It's almost like people's opinions now have become like the critic. It's like criticizing something is your opinion. It's
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
instead of just saying like a critic could be not criticizing, yeah, negatively. Because what I'm saying is like, you can have an opinion, but the opinion doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be good. It's just maybe something you felt, maybe something that you thought was interesting. No, people are really like, my opinion is almost like this is how it should have been done. This is what it should look like.
Yeah.
This is what it needed to be perfect, and it didn't have it. And I'm like, wow, planet Earth, please stop.
Yeah.
Let's stop for a second. It's not necessary, and everyone can have an opinion, and we can still enjoy each other's thoughts and discussions, but not go to the level where, I mean, that's what's technically happening at a higher level with population, right? Because then things
100%.
get so that like when one person has an opinion and this opinion does not match, boom. People don't talk, people have wars, people destroy families. I'm like, wow, people, let's just stop for a second.
Yeah.
We don't need that. Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, sorry. Woo, that was a little tangent to say that like where the world's going and where like what interests me in dance, like creativity, uh, creativity needs to allow and allows for anything to be what it is, good or bad or better or bigger or smaller. It does not matter. But when people have like certain, because you know, some people also just say like, I'm doing this because I want to be like, I want to achieve that, or I want to be famous, I want to be the best choreographer, I want to be the best. Like, there's such a narrowing goal that then will make you do the same as someone else who did to get there. It's like you see a famous dancer, I'll be the same as that dancer. That choreographer is successful, I'll copy that choreographer. I saw that movie, I'll do a movie the same. It's like, it's so, instead of just
Yeah.
like creative, discussing with people, try something new. Some things will work, some people will connect with it, some people will not connect with it. But I wish then when people don't connect with it or don't think it was great, that it doesn't bring everything down with it. It's just like, this thing is here, people didn't connect, it's fine, it's still there. Some people did. Maybe 1,000 connected with this one, 1,000,000 connected with that one. It's okay. It's the world is here for us to also like enjoy the things that are possible and offered. And so yeah, maybe I'm going too much on like a woo.
No, but it's true, but especially with creativity, that is so subjective actually, like the
Yeah.
taste.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're like saying an opinion, we're objectifying, we're like, no, this is objective, like opinion. I'm like, no, not necessarily. Like we see in a very different ways. Yeah. So I totally
It's
agree with
like,
what you said.
like what you just said about like when people have a different opinion and it's subjective, is like, it's almost like people now believe it seems like to be in human belief that like, if people don't think the way I'm thinking, like this is my opinion, if people don't think that this opinion is right, then automatically they are wrong.
Yeah.
You are wrong. If you don't think like me, you are wrong. And I'm like, no, they just don't think like you.
Yeah.
Like, you like
Yeah,
strawberries,
no,
they
for
like
sure.
bananas, because they don't like strawberries, that doesn't mean that like they cannot even, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
now the opinion becomes so like, the opinion is the rule. And I'm like, no, it's not. An opinion, the word opinion is what you think with your thoughts and your information, you create an opinion. So it's something it's not a thing that is scientifically written. It's like, this is the opinion that should be here. No, it's something that comes out of like so many pieces of information. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Sorry, not only you create your own opinion, but like a lot of the reasons why you have certain opinions are shaped by your environment, by your experience.
exactly. This is
So
what I
many
was gonna say.
different parts that like you cannot blame somebody who has a completely different lived experience than you, that they have a different opinion. Of course they're gonna have a different opinion because they have very different experience to certain things. And so we need to respect it and try and understand why the other people think that way
And discuss.
and discuss.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because then when you talk, you can, again, like I was saying, like being the sponges, you can like not necessarily influence a person, because that's not the goal, but it's to show other ways of thinking or doing something so that the other person can be like questioned and be like,
Yes.
huh, like I still think the same after hearing you, or, huh, interesting point. I didn't think of that. That makes me question what I thought was my truth is now a little shaken, and people need to recognize that it can be shaken, and when it's shaken, to reevaluate. And I think like kind of responding to the thing of closing ourselves into copying other people. One thing that I notice, and many of the younger generation than I am, so maybe you guys will disagree with me. Another topic we can converse on disagreeing. But I think because of social media nowadays, because back in our time, like we didn't have social media. I actually, to be honest with you, I can remember Facebook was when I was in NDT 2.
Oh.
And Instagram was when I was in NDT 2 or already in 1. So it was like, well, maybe not when it started, but maybe when it reached, us,
Mhm.
my community, Europe, like maybe it was there a couple years before. I'm not so sure. I didn't look up the dates of the opening of the companies. But I notice now, and a lot of people that I speak with, they agree with me. So it's not like I'm kind of lunatic. It's like, because some people are so insta famous and have like a gazillion followers for their, their moving or their digital pictures. So for whatever reason, people become like insta famous. What happens is everybody else that wants to be that, or wants to be that level of famous, or wants to have that level of success, or whatever their attraction is to that, they tend to then do the same, right? So then what's happening is I believe this is kind of true because I've discussed this with many like ballet masters, stagers, even some dancers that are in companies still. What we see now is like people, for example, you see an improv video, everyone does the same. Everyone looks the same. The improv is like, I could literally change the face of a person, put another one, and it's the same movement. You know what I mean? Whereas when you are fully interested in like, I don't know, exploring your body, exploring ideas or whatever it is that makes you more complete and more versatile. That's what I was talking to Martin just before. Versatility, I think, is such a good word to use for like what we could try to strive for more. Wow, this English here was really like what we could strive for is to think of versatility as like a key or a source of inspiration to do what we do and behave how we behave, because like it not being versatile, or maybe you don't want to use the word versatility, you want to say openness, or whatever other word that kind of makes you think of like more than one thing. So instead of just thinking like, I am this way, that you could be like, you know what, like there's so much out there that can change and influence, so you're more open. So then on a professional dance artist, actor, singer level, shapes you to be broader, but also as people, because then, like you just said, when you're talking to someone else who has different opinions and you just have to converse and understand, the more you think of that versatility, openness, whatever word, the more you're accepting, the more you're understanding, the more you comprehend. Because, for example, I remember another thing that I speak sometimes with people about, um, working in an environment, for example, at NDT2 and in NDT1 for that matter, and in many companies, but specifically there, because that's where I did most of my career. Being in a confined space for endless days a year with the same people, working, sweating, getting tired, being upset, being frustrated, like being happy, being in love, like so many experiences are lived. But then the fact that you live them with people that are so different to you. Like, for example, for me, that's always something that I always relate to, like, and this is maybe a tricky thing to talk about. So this may be something to be careful. But when we talk about like diversity, the word diverse, for me, diversity also comes from like a point of culture and geography, culture and geography. Because if I'm in a room with a Korean dancer and an Australian dancer and an Israeli dancer and a Russian dancer and a Spanish and a Portuguese and American. So if we're all there, we all have very different cultures. We all were brought up very differently, right? You have some people that are like taught to shut up and respect. You have people that are taught to like be yourself and express yourself. There's so many things that shape us uh, to who we are. And a lot of it comes from where geographically we were born or raised and our culture, right? So growing up in a space where you have a lot of that and you're sort of, I want to use the word forced to be together, because we are forced to work with our colleagues for the full season. So whether you like them or disagree with them or whatever the situation is, you're there. You got to work together. You got to partner each other. You got to touch each other. You got to do exercises together. So it really is a perfect example of like being open, because the more you understand all of it, to your question in the beginning about shaping me as a person, I think that is such a good example of who I always wanted to be, but who I became, because I really always want to like understand and respect people. And I think now trying to connect this with the dance part, like people wanting to just imitate others for whatever reason, it lacks that openness of just like, you know what, a bit of everything, a bit of everything, because then when you see something else, you don't see it as like the only one thing, right? That's like which then therefore changes your opinion. And if your opinion is not like this is the only thing, the way you behave about someone else who will say that they don't like that, they like something else, be like, well, okay, because you're not like, yeah, because that's the only thing, that's the only option. It's like, no, there's more. So that will create also like in the world itself, but like in the dance community, more this openness of like movement is movement, body is body, and there's so much that you can do, achieve, and try and explore and make it happen. Then of course, and this is the hardest part on, let's say, the industry of dance companies and projects and whatnot, it's of course then there's like, okay, a certain company works with like a certain choreographer. So of course, if your tools don't make you like understand or move that way necessarily, of course you cannot say, well, they have to have dancers also from there doing this because they need to be more open. It's like, yeah, but if they're working on this specifically, we can force them to now change that. You know what I mean? Because we have like a company that works on like just floor work. These people just do like breakdancing and, like, so there's this necessity of opening up, which I think is necessary. But then there's also people have to understand that when something is like specific, that if you want to go into that specific thing, you can't like break what was specific about it.
Yes.
Think like you're not gonna put all the spices in every dish. Some dishes need certain spices, some dishes need others, and it doesn't mean that one spice is better than the other. It's just
Exactly. There we go. Thank you. Perfect example. And then what's good about spices in general is like, just because curry is made with curry, it doesn't mean that what's not made with curry is not good. It just means that I have a million spices, and when I'm going to create something new, I'll be like, you know what? Let me try a bit of that one, but maybe put this one and see what that does. And that's what the creativity needs to keep flowing.
It reminds me, like, it brings me back to one episode, I think it was last season from the podcast, where we asked a stager from Justin Peck, would you rather see, we were talking about balancing, for example, would you rather take a plane, go to New York and see New York City Ballet doing like the actual thing? Or would you rather be able to walk down the street of your city and be like, okay, the company here is doing balance sheet. It's obviously not what people that grew up with SAB education and stuff would provide, but would you rather be open to be able to access that quickly, or would you rather see the original one, but then require to like fly to New York? Like, it's very like, what would you, like, it's very different. It's also,
And that goes back to the openness, because then wouldn't it be interesting if, of course, financially you're able to go to New York and watch it, because not everybody has that capacity too,
yeah.
But wouldn't it be interesting to watch both?
Yeah.
Instead of choosing, because then people's like,
Exactly.
I will never watch that. I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
For example, I'll give you an example. When people tell me, I go, oh, I'm going to watch this movie. They go like, oh, don't even bother. It's not good. And immediately, almost as out of defiance, I'm like,
yeah.
I will go watch it, because I hear your opinion, but I want to know if I will enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you didn't, it doesn't mean I won't. And because I am, and that's the tricky part too, because then I am so like open and like excited for something different, that when I see something that people already go like, it was bad, I'm kind of like, well, okay, maybe it wasn't my favorite, but I enjoyed this. I enjoyed that moment. This thing was
Yeah.
really cool. Oh, this part was awesome. Like, so yeah. It's like when I watch a piece, if I watch a ballet piece or whatever piece, maybe I don't like the whole piece, but I'll be like, oh, that section there or that little duet in the middle, wow, that was fantastic. Or like that group section with those effects, that was beautiful to watch. It doesn't mean like, oh, 100% of the time it wasn't amazing, therefore it's not a good piece. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, hey, that's like a grabbing a sword and just slicing everybody's heads off. It's like, wow, okay, there's nothing beautiful in anything you see. Then you should go to a therapist. And then
Yes.
like see, like, because you might have a problem that needs to
Yeah.
be figured out.
My last question is, was there a piece of advice that was given to you about creativity, or that you were happening to be in the studio that you heard a choreographer or an artist told in the studio or whatever that really resonate with you and stayed with you? It could be anything from anyone in any kind of circumstance.
That's a hard question. I should
Yeah.
have prepared it. So on a personal level, I remember someone from my family saying, oh, sorry, let me just take the vibration off from the phone. Let me think on this one. Give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
When it comes to, for example, at work, like in the studio at work, a piece of advice that was given, which I think 90% of the people have heard it maybe, but it's like something that I kind of connect to, is when you're working in the studio to sort of work at a level that is already sort of performance level, in a sense that sometimes we think there needs to be a space for exploration, trial, error, all that, because that's what the studio is for. But there is again, it's all like it all stems from the brain, right? Because if in our brain, when we're rehearsing, we're just like, oh, it's just a rehearsal, it's just a rehearsal, I can fail again, we'll do it again. Like if our brain puts us in that state when performance time comes, on one hand, choreographers have never really seen what they're gonna see on stage, so they don't know if you're ready. They don't know if it's at the level that it's supposed to be. And then also for us, the performer, the dancer, when you go to stage, your body and your mind are not ready. So then what
Right.
happens is you get, if we go, I don't know, like I'm not a doctor, but like, I guess your body goes into like shock and adrenaline shots. So you kind of like try to save the show because, now I'm performing. It needs to be, so then your brain and your body are like in this accident mode. It's like, I just had an accident, so you're, and then what can happen is that people can get injured, or your performance isn't as great as you want to because you were too nervous or too. So that's why I'm saying about the going further and further and further and how to get people to further. It doesn't mean like killing yourself and sweating like there's no tomorrow. It just means like always working on a level that you think that you're already presenting a performance. You're already giving what you would give if the curtain goes up. So that when the curtain goes up, you're having fun.
And
Because
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, like it's important to experience the sensation of performing, because it's a different experience than to just rehearsing. And so
Physically
it's like
and mentally.
exactly. And so it's good for your body and your mind to have experienced that state before.
Because if you experience it in the studio and you experience it more times before you go on stage, and that's another piece of advice that comes with this, is when you go on stage, you can have fun. You're supposed to enjoy, right? It's like recently I just saw a video of someone saying like, you got to work especially like ballet dancers in the ballet world, they were like classical companies. They were saying like, talking about how specifically you work on ballet techniques since you're a child, and you work and you work and you repeat the tendus for like millions of days in your life. But it's like you do it so much at that level that when you're performing, you don't have to think about your tendu. You don't have to think about your arabesque. You don't think. You just perform. And that's the thing about like the brain and the body. When you're not only like body, 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 I need to do this. When that is gone, it's because you've experienced it so much that your mind doesn't need to worry about it. It's not a problem anymore. Oh yes, trial and error. Because when I was saying, when you rehearse at this sort of like, it's just a rehearsal, we can make mistakes, we can try again, we can make it better, da da da. But if you do that at the level of performing mind level, your trial and error is a trial and error of performance. It's not a trial and error of just hanging around and having fun. It's like we're trying and making mistakes of the performance level, so that when the performance day comes, that performance level was failed, errored, bettered, and experienced. So you know what I mean? Instead of experiencing it all here, and then you go here, there's a shot, and then you have to try with all the shows and all that. Then you have to try to figure that error again. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
Like you have to repeat the dose on a higher level.
Totally.
So if you already put that in that already helps prepare for then just enjoying stage.
Totally.
A stage should be like enjoyment, because if you don't enjoy, then it can be really hard.
Point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And to close off, is there anything that you never get to share that you find very close to you that you would like to share?
No, I guess as you can see, I talk a lot and I'm like, so I share a lot, I expose a lot, I say a lot. And so, no, I don't think so. Maybe after we hang up the call, I'll be like, I should have said this. But no, I guess no. I think just in general. Can you repeat the question again? Maybe it'll pop.
Well, I can maybe phrase it differently, like something that you don't often talk about that like is close to you, that you care about, maybe.
No, I think just like humanity is something that it's close to me. It's like like my mom sometimes says like, oh yeah, but sometimes you live like in your pink world, whereas like I don't focus too much on the bad, because the bad is out there enough. And as we say in Portuguese, para dar e vender, it's like enough to give and to sell. There's so much of it that you have enough to give to people and to sell to people. That I don't know, there's something that I just love is just people and connection and friendships and love, and just like, I don't know, I think it's important for the world to just be kinder, nicer, fun. We need to enjoy, because wow, I mean, look at what we have to experience, and we don't fully do. And then when you and then we're gone. So you go like, oh, is it worth it? You go like, was it really like just waste all that time? So for me, it's just like, yeah, on a human level, just that, like, love. Love.
Roger, thank you so much for your time, really, especially in this hectic week. We're like 1 week away from the premiere, like taking time.
Crazy.
It's busy, busy, busy. So thank you so much for your time. And it was a pleasure to talk to you, to work with you. You're just such a pressure jam. So thank you. Thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, this was Kunst. Ciao, see you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Kunst Staatsballet Hanover. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And you can also find all featured episodes on the Staatsoper Hanover website. Don't forget to follow Staatsballet Hanover on Instagram, as well as Kunst for more updates and behind-the-scene content. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to reach out and share your feedback. We are Lorenzo, Nastasia, Francesco, and Martin. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, stay kunstig.